Sunbelt Business Brokers, your business brokerage, maybe one day digital analytics says, hey, we want to sell. And that's maybe when they would call someone like you to come in and help them figure out how to evaluate their company and how to find a prospective buyer for them.
That's absolutely correct. We were just talking about that a little bit before you got
there
here.
you go. All right.
I was getting Jody the rundown on what we do and how we do it. I think the biggest thing most business owners don't do is they don't talk to someone like us in advance. You don't know what you're worth if you haven't sat down on paper and crunched the numbers and really thought about what is a buyer looking to buy you for. Very often, every owner thinks, I'm the key person to business. I'm important. My business is great because I'm here. But that's actually the opposite when you sell. If I'm buying your company, if you're not here when you're gone, what is your company? If you're the most important person. So diversifying yourself out of the business as much as possible is the first step in getting to the best price you can get. And I think sometimes owners, obviously if you're business on your ego, sometimes you feel great about it. You love your puppet, puppy. It's great. It's your project. But I'd say, you know what? Learn to step back. Bring people in. Empower them to make decisions for you and grow your company. So when it's time to step away, you can get the best price.
Yeah, I think that's such great advice. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. But let me back up. Sunbelt Business Brokers was originally founded in South Carolina.
Yes.
And then they have franchisees around the country who sort of have a territory.
Correct.
And then work. And that's what y'all do. But you have grown it, you and your dad have grown it throughout the Gulf South, really.
That's correct. Yes, my father started about 22 years ago here in Baton Rouge. And ironically, he was looking to buy a business, and the person who owned the franchise went under, and he told his partner, look, you got 10 grand? He goes, yeah, I got 10 grand. He goes, let's buy this business. We'll get the first shop that comes on the market. And that's how they got started. And 20 years later, he's like, I'm still here.
Wow, that's great. And y'all specialize in mostly small businesses, Main Street, which is the smaller side of the market, and also middle market too.
Correct.
A little bit. And what size range is that like?
Roughly, we go up to about 20 million in acquisition size. There's a lot of big brokerage firms that handle the mid-market stuff around 30 to 50 to 100 million. That's not really what we really specialize in. Can we handle it? Yes. Is there that many opportunities in Louisiana? Not that many in our market. Now, if you go to Dallas, Houston, LA, whole different practice. But we specialize everything. We sold stuff as low as 10,000 up to 20 million. So we've covered a wide range.
That's great. And how big is your firm?
We have 14 brokers across all our 7 offices. Right now, probably everyone's been with us at least 10 years or more. Most guys, even they're longer than I have, 15 to 20.
Wow. You're listening to Out to Lunch. I'm Stephanie Riegel. I'm talking to Jody Mitchell of Directed Analytics and Brandon Bourgeois of Sunbelt Business Brokers. Brandon, in your business, you have to know a lot about, the financing part of businesses, real estate, probably some law.
Yes.
How you have a broad range of experience? Do you have to have a bunch of degrees? Or have you learned some of it just by doing?
A lot's by doing. It's good to have a business background, having to run a company or worked in an accounting firm. We have some guys with backgrounds in food service, lawyers, former pro sports athlete. Alan Risher played quarterback at LSU. She's one of our guys. It comes from all varieties. The best thing is, can you learn and adapt and learn to work with people? Because no matter how much, if you can read the books, you understand what a contract says, if you can't get someone to understand what they're buying and show them what it is and show them the value, then they're not going to make a purchase.
When somebody comes to you, is it more often a seller who wants help selling her business, or is it a buyer who's interested in an acquisition and wants help knowing what's a reasonable price to pay?
Very often both. Typically, most sellers come to us saying, look, I've been in business 20 years. I'm tired. I'm old. I need to get out. What am I worth? What can I expect? And we'll look at the numbers and help them say, look, roughly, here's a good range you should fall in based on what your business is doing. Often buyers will, then we go and find a buyer for them. Other times buyers come to us and say, look, we're looking to strategically grow. If you ever get an HVAC company in this range, you ever get a plumbing company or manufacturing, I need to grow in Louisiana. Or a lot of cases, I need the license. Like in medical, for example, there's a moratorium on home health, PCA, DME, and you cannot get a license unless you purchase an existing business in the state. The state will not issue more licenses. So if you're, say, in Dallas and you want to move into the Louisiana markets, you have to buy an existing home health company to get in. So a lot of times buyers reach out to that modality and say, hey, anything that comes up, I don't care. I need the license. I'll pay just for the license. They can keep the rest of the company. I just need to do business.
Yeah. So what kind of activity are you seeing right now, as we're emerging from the pandemic? We've got some wonky things going on with the economy. Is there a lot of activity in the acquisition business, or people like hanging on to what they have?
No, there is. There's a lot. SBA got extremely aggressive during the pandemic. They were doing as low as 10% down to get in for loans under up to $5 million. So a lot of people who didn't think they had that opportunity were able to go and acquire or grow or even just start their own operation. Private equity several years ago would not look at anything making less than $5 million EBITDA. Now they're looking as low as $750,000.
Really?
People are just pulling the money out of the stock market. Private equity has grown astronomically. People realize there's money in these firms. So what they're trying to do is they know they can't go out and just buy one big operation. So they start a platform company, maybe around 20 million in sales, and they go and buy regionally smaller companies and add to that platform. And the goal is eventually take it and do an IPO. So the only way to do that is they come in, these private equity groups, and say, hey, any HVAC in South Louisiana, I want to add to my platform. I'm fine. Just let me know. I'm aggressive. I'll pay cash. And all of a sudden, they go from a 20 million revenue company to a 40, 50, 60, 70, $100 million revenue company in just a few years, and their return on investment is massive.
So that's sort of the private equity strategy that you're seeing. Acquire lots of these little guys.
Yes.
That you might not think is any great shakes, but when rolled into something bigger and then interesting. Wow, you must encounter a lot of fascinating people in your...
It's been an interesting job, to say the least. I learned a lot as a young man at 21 starting, and at 32 now, I'm still amazed every day.
Jody, tell me a little bit about... I'm sorry, did you have a question?
I do have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
With the private equity, are they thinking that being able to purchase and manage companies is more advantageous than just staying in the stock market? Is that the rationale?
That's what I've seen. And a lot of the private equity, too, a lot of families have old line money, decided that they need to diversify, but how do you make a good return quickly? Real estate, you're stuck in your real estate till you sell it. That's why a lot of commercial firms now, like McDonald's, KFC, they unload their real estate. They want to get as much of their money back into their balance sheet as soon as they possibly can to keep growing, because that money's tied up in that large piece of real estate. So these private equity firms realize, what would we try with businesses? Because there's a lot of good businesses you can buy quickly for $1 million in the same area, but could never all buy each other out at one time. But if we come in and can offer stock and benefits and grow this company, the owners not only get paid cashed out of their business, can have a small stock percentage, so when it goes live, they make a great return on their investment. Not only that, a lot of times it's skilled labor too, like in the HVAC and plumbing industries, which is very hot right now for these groups. You can't find skilled labor, so how do you do it? You acquire.
Why is HVAC and plumbing hot? Just out of curiosity, since you mentioned
the maintenance contracts have gotten very big. I think if you ever had your HVAC go out recently, they offer a maintenance contract $25 a month. Well, that's recurring revenue. They love recurring revenue in the skilled labor. So as much recurring revenue as they can get, the better valuation they will get, because that's stable revenue. It's not having to go find a new customer every single day down the street. We're getting 400 customers paying us $30 a month. That's locked in money. Yeah. That's great. What business owner doesn't want that? And if you can get a couple thousand contracts together, you can start economy of scale. You can go down the rabbit hole there, but it becomes a very advantageous operation.
So with this National Science Foundation grant, tell us a little bit more about what you all are developing. You mentioned for individuals with intellectual disabilities.
Yes.
So the software is to help them become more employable, or the schools, the educational institutions where they are students? Tell me a little bit more specifically, because I'm not clear.
Yes, absolutely. The National Science Foundation, they have, for their small business technology transfer research grants, they have 2 phases. We have a phase 1 and a phase 2. And phase 1 is around, well, when we did it, it was $256K. Now I think it's around $275. And then phase 2 is $1 million. And it is, if you raise $1 million, they'll match a half, and then I think there's another $200,000 that you can get for that. But basically, phase 1 is to prove the feasibility of your concept and basically reduce the risk. And
so tell us what your concept is. I mean, you mentioned individuals with intellectual disabilities.
Yes. And so this is there's a lot of variables and factors that go into developing employability skills for individuals with developmental disabilities. And let's just say you have someone with a specific developmental disability, and there would be some factors that would be required to develop this particular individual for a specific job. So let's say this person wanted to be a computer scientist, or they wanted to do computer programming. You could have another individual with developmental disabilities that may want to be a computer scientist as well, or a computer programmer, but there's different things that would need to happen in both cases potentially. So the challenge is that it requires subject matter expertise to be able to do that. So basically what we want to do is through technology, machine learning, advanced processing, we want to be able to basically take subject matter expert inputs and be able to scale that across different use cases from the standpoint of you have individuals with different types of developmental disabilities or different areas, and they have different goals, but we want to one day have the ability for a student, whether they're in high school or they're transitioning to a higher education program, we want them to be able to come in and say, hey, I want to get from point A to point B, similar to your GPS, and I want you to show me what I need to do to get there. And if and when I do get off track, I want you to get me back on track, similar to your GPS.
And so you would sell this product to the school where they're going, right?
Yes.
For their training or their certification or their degree or whatever.
Yes.
Or to the school systems or to the state or...
Secondary schools and higher ed programs.
Very interesting. And this would be a computer program that they would sit down and use on a PC terminal or on an app on their phone?
It would be both.
Or both.
Yes, yes.
Very interesting. Brandon, how big are y'all, and how many employees do you have? I know y'all are growing a lot.
Well, we have contract agents. We have 14 right now, including myself. We're expanding to 2 more offices in Panama City and Destin, Florida right now. We should hire about 2 or 3 guys in the Florida Panhandle region. I'd say about 14, right now. Hoping to get to 17 to 20, give or take, based on the market right now. For our 7 locations, we typically don't want to overcrowd a market. There's only so many businesses that will exchange hands every year. But typically, you would probably say of the 10% that do exchange hands in the market, a total business, 10% will change hands. About half will use a broker. Some are arm's length transactions. Some are, competitor to competitor who just reach out and say, hey, do you want to do a deal? Others, they need us.
Sure. And do y'all handle it soup to nuts? I mean, do you have the attorneys on staff that can draw up the
We don't have them on staff, but we have
or...
groups that we've used previously that have done. We have one attorney here in town who's done about 400 closings for us. So we typically recommend attorneys who have good business experience. There's a lot of good title attorneys out there, but closing deals, especially in the ranges as you get larger, gets a lot more complicated with the paperwork.
Sure. Do you do succession planning?
We do not.
Seems
no.
like that's a huge need, as you alluded to at the beginning, to make people aware of the need to start
That's
thinking
one thing we
this
mentioned
way.
to, say there's an older couple who owns a business, we always remind them, hey, if you don't have power of attorney, if your husband's ill, please get that, because if the business goes into succession, it can't be sold. Mm-hmm. And that can often, it really hurts the business because the business deteriorates when the leader's not there. And what you could have sold for now versus 8 months later can be a whole different story.
Sure. Jody, you're paying attention. He's got great advice for a business just starting out and just really starting to grow and get some traction. It's really
I'm going to be
important to think
following
about
up with
these
Brandon
things
after
now.
this conversation.
Happy to help.
Awesome.
Well, Brandon Bourgeois and Jody Mitchell, you both are doing so many exciting things to make local businesses better and stronger and to create new opportunities in the educational space and the digital analytics space. So thank you both for all your hard work and for sharing your insights and experiences with us today on Out to Lunch.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. Yes. Thank you.
My guests today on Out to Lunch have been Brandon Bourgeois of Sunbelt Business Brokers of Baton Rouge and Jody Mitchell of Directed Analytics. We had to edit this show to fit into our time slot here on WRKF. You can hear our unedited conversation and learn more about Directed Analytics and Sunbelt Business Brokers by going to the Out to Lunch Baton Rouge podcast. You can find and subscribe to the Out to Lunch Baton Rouge podcast anywhere you get podcasts and on our website, it's batonrouge.la. If you want to know what we all look like, you can find photos from this show on itsbatonrouge.la and on our Out to Lunch Baton Rouge social media. Photos are taken by Eric Otts. You can find more of Eric's photos on Instagram at Acro, that's ACREAUX. Out to Lunch is a production of INO Broadcasting for itsbatonrouge.la and WRKF 89.3 FM.